My cheating wife lied and betrayed me. My calculated, brutal revenge, job destroyed, kids gone. She never saw it coming. Shocking. Okay, so this is a throwaway account for obvious reasons. I'm a mess right now, just completely adrift, and I don't even know if I'm looking for advice or just needing to vent before I do something I might regret. Or maybe I won't regret it. God, I don't know. My wife, Sarah, and I have been married for 7 years, together for 10. We have 2 kids, 5 and 3. On the surface, we were that couple, you know. The ones who looked like they had it all figured out, always laughing, always posting those cheesy anniversary photos. I truly thought we were solid. Imperfect, sure, every marriage has its bumps, but solid. The first crack started appearing about 6 months ago. She got a new promotion at work, which I was genuinely thrilled about. More money, more responsibility, great for her career. But with it came changes. Little things at first. She started working later, client meetings, or deadlines. Fair enough, I thought. I picked up more of the slack with the kids, dinner, bedtime. No big deal, right? Supporting your partner. But then the calls started. Or rather, the lack of calls. She'd be out late, and my texts would go unread for hours. When she finally replied, it was always a quick, dismissive, busy, we'll call later, but later never came until she was already walking through the door. Her phone became an extension of her hand, but it was always face down, or she'd whip it away if I so much as glanced in its direction. Once, I saw her typing furiously, then suddenly she locked it and put it away when I walked into the living room. Just talking to my sister, she snapped, a little too quickly, a little too defensively. My sister lives in another country and they barely text, let alone furious typing sessions. That was the first prickle of unease. Her mood shifted too. She became bitchy. Not just stressed, but genuinely irritable with me. Everything I did was wrong. The way I loaded the dishwasher, the way I helped the kids with their homework, even the way I breathed, it felt like. One night, I tried to gently ask if everything was okay, if the new job was too much. She blew up, accusing me of not supporting her, of trying to hold her back. It was a bizarre, almost alien reaction. The woman I married would never have said those things. I just stood there, stunned, and that night felt like the first icy wall between us. I blamed the stress, the new job, told myself she was just overwhelmed. I was so incredibly, stupidly wrong. Things escalated pretty quickly after that. Her phone habits became an obsession for her, and a torture for me. She'd take it to the bathroom, even if she was just going for a minute. If I walked into the room where she was, she'd flinch and hide the screen. It was like living with a spy, or someone who was constantly expecting a secret message. I tried to talk to her again, told her I felt like she was pulling away. She just rolled her eyes and accused me of being needy and insecure. That stung. I'm not needy. I just wanted my wife back. Then came the overtime that didn't make sense. She'd claimed to be working until 9 or 10 p.m., but then come home smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't hers, something lighter, sweeter, definitely not her usual scent. And her clothes? Sometimes, she'd change before coming home, which was an instant red flag. When I asked about it, she'd say she spilled coffee or just felt like changing after a long day. But it happened too often. One night, she came home, and I noticed a faint mark on her neck, almost like a hickey, but she had her hair down. "What's that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. She immediately went defensive, pulling her hair forward. "It's nothing, probably just scratched myself at work." "Are you seriously trying to pick a fight right now?" Her anger was immediate, disproportionate. The lies started piling up, small at first, then larger. She'd say she was with a colleague for dinner, but then I'd see a photo on Facebook of that colleague at home with their family that same evening. When I subtly brought it up, she'd have an elaborate explanation ready, always with an edge of irritation. "Oh, we met earlier, they just went home before me, you know how busy they are." It never quite added up. The trust, which I thought was unbreakable, started to erode, crumb by painful crumb. Every time she spoke, I found myself scrutinizing her words, looking for the cracks. It was exhausting, this constant internal vigilance. I felt like I was losing my mind, second-guessing everything. Was I paranoid? Was she really just stressed? Or was my gut, that cold, heavy knot in my stomach, screaming the truth? The absolute bombshell dropped last Tuesday. It wasn't some dramatic movie scene, no confronting her with a text message. It was far more mundane, and in a way, far more horrifying because of it. Our youngest, Leo, had a fever, pretty high, and I called Sarah at work to let her know I was taking him to the urgent care clinic. She picked up, sounding annoyed, as usual. "Can't you handle it? I'm in a really important meeting, I can't leave." Typical. I told her no, he needed to see a doctor. She begrudgingly said she'd try to get away. A few hours later, I was back home with Leo, who was finally resting. Sarah still wasn't back. I tried calling her, no answer. Texted her, nothing. Around 8 p.m., I tried her office landline, just in case. Her assistant answered, "Oh, Sarah left around 2 p.m. for the day, said she had a personal appointment." 2 p.m. Not an important meeting. Not too busy to leave. She had been gone hours before I called about Leo. My heart started thumping like a drum solo. That sickening feeling, the one you push down, suddenly surged. I remembered her spilled coffee explanation for changing clothes. I decided to check her car. I know, invading privacy. But at this point, all bets were off. I went out to the garage, opened her car door. Nothing obvious. Then, I saw it, tucked between the driver's seat and the center console, a small, dark red silk scarf. It wasn't hers. I know her wardrobe inside and out, and this was definitely not something she owned. It also smelled faintly of men's cologne, a heavy, musky scent. Not my cologne. I pulled it out, my fingers trembling. As I did, a small, laminated card fell out from within the folds of the scarf. It was a business card. For a high-end boutique hotel, one of the swankier ones downtown. And on the back, handwritten in a familiar flourish, her handwriting, was a room number and a name, Mark, room 704. And a time, 3 p.m., Tuesday. The same Tuesday she was supposedly in an important meeting, the same Tuesday her assistant said she left at 2 p.m. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just a hunch anymore. It was concrete. It was undeniable. It was a punch to the gut that left me breathless. It was all true. All of it. I stared at that business card, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Mark, room 704, 3 p.m., Tuesday. That was today. This wasn't something from the past, this was happening right now. A frantic energy surged through me, a mix of white-hot rage and bone-chilling dread. My first instinct was to drive straight to that hotel and rip the door off its hinges, but then I thought about the kids asleep upstairs. I couldn't do that. Not with them in the house. I needed proof, undeniable, irrefutable proof, not just a scarf and a handwritten note. My mind raced. I knew her phone passcode. It was our anniversary date, something sweet and dumb that I never thought she'd change. She usually charged her phone in the kitchen. I crept downstairs, my heart hammering. Sure enough, there it was, plugged into the wall. I picked it up, unlocked it. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I went straight to her messages. There he was, a contact saved simply as, work contact. But the messages, oh God, the messages. They weren't work-related. They were explicit. Pictures, pet names, plans for their next rendezvous. He called her my little firecracker. She called him Tiger. My stomach churned. And there, plain as day, was a message from him sent just a few hours ago: "Can't wait for our next meeting tomorrow, Sarah. Room 704. And her reply: "Me neither, Tiger." Same time. It was all there. A whole secret life, laid bare in glowing pixels. I scroll back through weeks, months of their exchanges. The overtime, the client meetings, the sudden changes in plans, the new perfume, it all clicked into place, a horrifying mosaic of betrayal. My brain felt like it was short-circuiting. The woman I loved, the mother of my children, was not just cheating, but planning to do it again, tomorrow. And she had the audacity to lie to my face, to make me feel like I was the problem, the insecure one. The rage I felt was so immense it felt like it would consume me whole. I wanted to smash the phone, smash everything. But I needed to be calm. I needed to think. This wasn't just about anger anymore, this was about justice. This was about making her pay. The rest of that night was a blur of pacing, silent screams into my pillow, and trying to process the absolute demolition of my reality. I didn't sleep a wink. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those messages, her pet names for him, his for her. It was a visceral punch to the gut, over and over again. I felt sick to my stomach, like I was going to throw up everything I'd ever eaten. The anger was still there, a hot, burning coal in my chest, but it was now laced with an unbearable sadness, a profound sense of loss for the future I thought we had. I had to confront her, of course. But not in a fit of rage. I needed to be cold, calculated. I needed to see her face when the truth hit her. She finally came home around midnight, smelling faintly of cheap takeout and that damn perfume. She walked in, threw her keys on the counter, and barely glanced at me. "Long day," she mumbled, heading straight for the bedroom. I followed her. "Yeah, I bet it was," I said, my voice dangerously calm. She paused, turning around, a frown on her face. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said, pulling out the silk scarf and the hotel business card from behind my back, "that I know you weren't in an important meeting at 2 p.m. today. Or 3 p.m. Or any time after you left the office to go to room 704 with Mark." Her face went from irritation to stark white terror in an instant. Her eyes widened, her jaw slackened. The color drained from her cheeks. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. The silence in the room was deafening, thick with unspoken accusations and shattering trust. She tried to stammer something, but no words came out. It was all the confirmation I needed. The look on her face, that abject horror, told me everything. The game was up. She finally found her voice, a small, pathetic whimper. What are you talking about?" The denial, even then. It infuriated me, but I kept my cool. "Don't play dumb, Sarah," I said, holding up her phone, which I'd had in my back pocket. "I've seen the messages. All of them. My little firecracker, Tiger, room 704 tomorrow. It's all here. Every disgusting detail." Her face crumbled. The denials stopped. She started to cry, real, shuddering sobs. "Please, no, please don't. I can explain." "Explain what?" I demanded, my voice finally rising, unable to contain the fury bubbling within me. "Explain why you lied to my face for months. Explain why you made me feel like I was crazy. Explain why you prioritized some hotel rendezvous over our sick child. Explain that, Sarah." She dropped to her knees, literally, clutching at my legs. It was a mistake. A terrible, horrible mistake. He pressured me. I was stressed with work. It meant nothing. "You have to believe me." "Pressured you?" I scoffed, pulling my legs away. "The messages say otherwise." They show you eagerly planning it, enjoying it. And it meant nothing. Do you honestly think I'm that stupid? Do you think our marriage, our children, mean nothing? She continued to sob, begging for forgiveness, pleading for another chance, swearing it would never happen again. Her excuses were pathetic, a cascade of blame-shifting and self-pity. She blamed her job, she blamed me for not paying her enough attention, she even blamed Mark for being too persistent. Not once did she take full responsibility. It was always someone else's fault. It was always a convenient excuse to deflect her own monstrous betrayal. Every word out of her mouth was just another lie, another attempt to manipulate me, and it only solidified my resolve. The woman before me was a stranger, a deceitful, self-serving stranger who had systematically dismantled our life together. And hey, if you're finding this story compelling, maybe you'd like to check out my YouTube channel. I post videos about personal growth and navigating difficult life situations, and it'd mean a lot if you could subscribe and give this video a like. It really helps me keep creating content. Her performance, and it truly felt like a performance, just hardened my heart. The tears, the begging, the flimsy excuses, it was all too little, too late. The emotional impact was immense, but it wasn't the kind of raw, gut-wrenching pain I expected to feel during a confrontation. It was more like watching a train wreck in slow motion, a detached, almost clinical observation of the inevitable. The initial shock had morphed into a cold, burning anger, followed by a profound, chilling sense of emptiness. I walked away from her, leaving her sobbing on the floor. I couldn't even look at her anymore. The woman I had loved, respected, built a life with, was gone, replaced by this manipulative stranger. The sadness hit me in waves, not for her, but for the life we had, the future I thought we had. It was a grief for a dead dream, a shattered illusion. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was an emotional and psychological warfare she had waged against me, eroding my trust, making me doubt my own sanity. The acceptance part was the hardest. Accepting that the person I vowed to spend my life with was capable of such calculated deceit. Accepting that my perception of our relationship was entirely wrong. It felt like I'd been living in a carefully constructed lie. The anger was easier to deal with. It was a fuel. But the sorrow, that deep, aching sorrow for what was lost, that lingered. It felt like a part of me had died, a part that believed in unconditional love and unwavering loyalty. I spent the next few days in a fog, going through the motions with the kids, but inside, I was a hollowed-out shell, just numb. The decision about what to do next started to form, slow and deliberate, fueled by the ashes of my old life. There was no going back. Not from this. The decision wasn't immediate, but it solidified rapidly in the days following the confrontation. There was no working on the marriage. That was dead. Buried. Her pathetic pleas and hollow apologies meant nothing. Every excuse she offered was just another twist of the knife. I realized then that she wasn't remorseful for her actions, but for getting caught. That distinction was crucial. It meant there was no foundation left to rebuild on. My first thought was immediate separation. Get her out. But then, the kids. I couldn't just throw her out on the street, not without thinking about the logistics, the emotional fallout for them. I needed a plan. A brutal, precise plan that would ensure she felt every ounce of the betrayal she inflicted. I wasn't just going to separate, I was going to dismantle her life, piece by piece, just as she had dismantled mine. I started discreetly gathering financial information. I knew she had a separate account, always saying it was for emergencies, or her own little savings. I also knew the password to our joint investment accounts, and hers for the credit cards. I needed to know the full extent of her financial landscape, and frankly, I needed to protect myself and the kids. She was a master manipulator, and I wasn't going to let her play the victim or try to siphon assets. This was going to be a clean break, but it wasn't going to be easy for her. The hardest part was pretending everything was normal for a few days. Playing the loving husband, making small talk, putting the kids to bed together. Every interaction felt like a blade twisting in my gut. Her attempts at normalcy, her forced smiles, her cautious attempts to initiate physical contact, I recoiled inwardly. The thought of her touch, knowing where those hands had been, what those lips had said to another man, filled me with revulsion. I gave her the cold shoulder, the distant stare, hoping she felt the weight of my contempt. The silence between us, especially at night, was deafening, filled with unspoken accusations and the heavy stench of deceit. This wasn't going to be a simple divorce, this was going to be a reckoning. My pretending phase lasted about a week, enough time for me to consult a lawyer, a very good one, specializing in marital asset protection. I explained the situation, provided the evidence from her phone, I'd taken screenshots, meticulously documenting everything, and laid out my desire for full custody of the kids and a very unfavorable financial outcome for her. My lawyer, a stern woman named Ms. Davies, simply nodded, "We can work with this." The next step was to expose her. Not just to me, but to the people whose opinions she valued most. Her parents, who adored me and thought I was the perfect husband for their daughter. Her siblings, who looked up to her. And her workplace, where she'd leveraged her promotion to create opportunities for her illicit affair. This wasn't about revenge in the heat of the moment, it was about surgical, strategic justice. I knew she had a big presentation coming up at work, a crucial one for her career. This was the target. The day before, I anonymously sent an email to her boss and HR. The email contained select screenshots from her phone, not the explicit ones, but enough to show her planning rendezvous during work hours, using company time and resources for personal, extracurricular activities. I highlighted how her overtime was actually time spent with her lover, how she neglected her responsibilities at home and clearly, potentially, at work. I also included a vague mention of Mark, and how he was a rival company's client, hinting at potential corporate espionage, though I had no proof. The ambiguity was key. It was enough to raise eyebrows and initiate an investigation without me having to lie. The following morning, a Monday, was brutal. I woke up, got the kids ready, put on a brave face. Sarah was still oblivious, humming as she got dressed for her big day. It felt incredibly surreal, like I was in a movie, watching a character about to be blindsided. I remember thinking, she deserves every single moment of this. The anticipation was almost unbearable, a sick kind of satisfaction building in my chest. I couldn't wait for her call, for the unraveling to begin. I truly believe you'll appreciate the intensity of this moment. If you're enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and liking this video. Your support really helps me continue sharing these honest, raw experiences. Thank you. The call came exactly at 10:30 a.m. My phone vibrated with Sarah's name, but I let it ring. She called again, and again, and again. On the fifth attempt, I finally answered, my voice deliberately neutral. "What do you want?" I asked, as if I hadn't spent the morning meticulously anticipating this very moment. Her voice was shrill, laced with panic and barely suppressed hysteria. "What did you do? What did you send to my work? They just suspended me. They're investigating everything. My career is ruined." "Oh," I said, a slow, deliberate tone, feigning surprise. "Is that what this is about? I thought maybe you were calling to tell me how your big presentation went. Or perhaps to apologize for neglecting our sick child while you were off having a hotel meeting with Mark." "You sick bastard," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "How could you? How could you destroy my life? Destroy your life?" I repeated, my voice now dropping to a dangerously low, controlled whisper. "You destroyed ours, Sarah. You lied, you cheated, you humiliated me, and you thought you could get away with it. This isn't destruction, darling. This is consequence." I could hear her hyperventilating on the other end. "I'll lose everything. My job, my reputation. You're evil." "No," I countered, a chilling calm washing over me. I'm just a man who found out his wife was a brutal cheat. And I'm taking brutal revenge. Now, listen carefully, because this is the only time I'm going to say this. Don't come home today. I've changed the locks. Your things are packed in bags by the curb. Your lawyer can contact mine. And don't even think about trying to see the kids without my explicit permission, because I have enough on you to ensure you won't get within 100 feet of them without supervision for a long, long time. Do you understand? The line went silent for a moment, punctuated only by her ragged gasps. Then, she let out a piercing wail, a sound filled with pure, unadulterated despair. I hung up. The satisfaction was profound, a dark, potent elixir that temporarily dulled the pain. It wasn't just sweet, it was necessary. The first domino had fallen. And there were many more to go. Hanging up that phone felt like severing a cancerous limb. The wail on the other end still echoed in my ears, but it brought no sympathy, only a grim sense of finality. I walked to the window and watched, through the blinds, as a small moving truck pulled up to the curb. My friend, Mark, a different, loyal Mark, was driving it. We'd spent the previous night packing her belongings, not carefully, not lovingly, but with a cold, almost surgical efficiency. Clothes, shoes, her endless collection of decorative trinkets, all tossed into black garbage bags and taped up cardboard boxes. When she eventually showed up, a few hours later, her face was blotchy, streaked with tears, her hair disheveled. She looked utterly broken. Her eyes scanned the house, saw the unfamiliar truck, and then locked onto me, standing impassively at the window. I watched her approach the house, try her key, then recoil when it didn't turn the lock. The realization hit her, hard. She saw her bags by the curb, and her face contorted into a fresh mask of horror. She started pounding on the door, shouting my name, alternating between furious accusations and desperate pleas. Let me in. You can't do this. This is my house too. You're a monster. I didn't open the door. I just stood there, watching her from behind the glass, letting her impotent rage wash over me. Mark, bless him, had already started loading her bags into the truck. She ran over, screaming at him, trying to stop him, but he just calmly continued. Sorry, Sarah, he said, his voice flat, just following instructions. Her parents lived an hour away, and I'd already made arrangements for the truck to drop her belongings at their doorstep, with an anonymous note simply stating, your daughter's true character. This wasn't just about my revenge, it was about exposing her lies to everyone she held dear. It was about making sure her reputation, her carefully constructed facade of perfection, shattered completely. The public humiliation, I knew, would sting her far more than any legal battle. This was just the beginning of her brutal reckoning. The phone calls from her parents started almost immediately after the delivery of her belongings. First, her mother, confused and distraught, asking what on earth was happening. I kept my voice calm, respectful, and factual. Sarah has been having an affair for months, Mrs. Peterson. I found undeniable proof. She chose to prioritize her lover over her family, even our sick child. I couldn't live with the betrayal. I've initiated divorce proceedings. I then, without going into graphic detail, mentioned the hotel rendezvous, the lies, the impact on her job, and how she was planning another meeting with her lover for the very next day. I let the facts speak for themselves, subtly implying the depth of her deceit. Her mother was speechless, then began to cry, I don't believe it, my Sarah, no. I wish it weren't true either, I said, my voice heavy with a manufactured sadness. But it is. Then came her father, all bluster and anger. What the hell are you doing to my daughter? You can't just throw her out. We'll sue you for everything. You're welcome to try, Mr. Peterson, I replied, my voice steel cold. My lawyer has all the evidence of her infidelity, which will make getting full custody of the children very straightforward, and will severely impact any financial claims your daughter might have. I also have evidence regarding her workplace conduct, which has already led to her suspension. I would suggest you advise your daughter to get her own legal counsel. As for your family, I'm genuinely sorry you had to find out this way, but she left me no choice. I ended the call before he could rant further. The damage was done. Her parents, who had always doted on her, were now faced with an undeniable truth about their perfect daughter. The subsequent phone calls from her siblings were a mix of disbelief, anger, and some cautious attempts at understanding. I gave them the same factual, calm rendition of events, emphasizing the calculated nature of her deceit. The reactions were varied, but the common thread was the shock and the undeniable erosion of her standing within her own family. Her social circle soon followed, as the news, inevitably, began to leak out. I didn't actively spread rumors, but I didn't correct any that surfaced, either. The truth, in this case, was more than enough. My revenge was unfolding with brutal efficiency. The aftermath was a whirlwind of legal filings, hushed phone calls, and the difficult task of explaining to the kids that mommy wouldn't be living with us anymore, a conversation that tore at my soul even as I maintained my steely resolve. Sarah's lawyer, as expected, sent angry letters, demanding access to the house, demanding shared custody, threatening financial ruin. My lawyer simply returned fire with a mountain of evidence, reiterating the infidelity and its impact on her character and fitness as a parent. Sarah, it turned out, hadn't been fired outright, but she was put on indefinite leave pending an internal investigation, her career effectively stalled, if not permanently derailed. Her high-flying promotion had crashed and burned, taking her professional reputation with it. The financial hit was immediate and severe for her. She had no savings to speak of, as her emergency fund account was surprisingly bare. She relied on her parents for a place to stay, a stark contrast to the independent, successful woman she always presented herself as. The children were the priority. I ensured they had a stable routine, showered them with love, and made sure they knew they were safe and adored. The sting of betrayal was still there, but it was now overshadowed by a fierce protectiveness for my kids. I wasn't just doing this for myself, I was doing it for them, to ensure they had a parent who valued integrity and loyalty. Seeing Sarah during supervised visitation exchanges was something. She looked haggard, a shadow of her former self. The sparkle in her eyes was gone, replaced by a dull, defeated glaze. She tried to talk to me once, "Can't we just try to be civil?" I just looked at her, my face impassive. Civility died the moment you betrayed our vows. Now, please ensure the kids are ready for their visit. No emotion, no anger, just cold, hard detachment. That was my revenge. Not yelling, not screaming, but the complete and utter removal of myself, and all the love I once had, from her life. She was getting exactly what she deserved. And if you're finding this story cathartic or relatable, please remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel and like this video. Your support means the world and helps me continue to share these raw, honest stories. Months turned into a year. The divorce was messy, protracted, and exactly as brutal as I intended it to be for her. With the irrefutable evidence of her affair, her blatant lies, and the subsequent impact on her job, I secured full physical custody of the children, with supervised visitation for her, a ruling that gutted her completely. Financially, she walked away with almost nothing beyond what the law absolutely mandated, and even then, her share was significantly reduced due to her conduct. The high-powered career she'd used as a cover for her affair was a distant memory. She struggled to find even entry-level work, her professional reputation irrevocably tarnished. Mark, the other man, disappeared from the picture almost as quickly as he arrived. Turns out, he wasn't interested in a woman with no job, no money, and a messy divorce, especially one whose affair was now public knowledge. He was just another parasite, feeding off her insecurities and desires for excitement. I heard through the grapevine that he'd quickly moved on to someone else, leaving Sarah completely alone. The emotional journey has been a roller coaster. There were still days when the anger would flare, or the sadness would threaten to overwhelm me. But those days became fewer and further between. The initial shock gave way to a profound sense of clarity. I grieved the loss of the future I envisioned, but I also felt an incredible liberation from the constant anxiety and deceit. I rediscovered myself, the man I was before Sarah's betrayal chipped away at my confidence and self-worth. I poured my energy into my kids, my job, and rebuilding a new, honest life. We moved into a smaller, cozier house, a fresh start. It was tough, being a single dad, but every moment with my children was a reminder of what truly mattered. They were thriving, adapting remarkably well, and their resilience was an inspiration. I started dating again, cautiously, learning to trust slowly, and understanding the importance of genuine transparency and respect. Looking back, the entire experience was a crucible. It burned away the illusions, the complacency, and the false sense of security. It was the hardest thing I've ever endured, but it also forced me to grow in ways I never thought possible. I learned that trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to repair, and sometimes, it's simply not worth trying. I learned that true strength isn't about avoiding pain, but about enduring it and emerging stronger. If I could offer any advice to someone in a similar situation, it would be this: trust your gut. Don't let them gaslight you into believing you're crazy. Gather your evidence. Protect your children. And when you decide to act, act with conviction and a clear head. Don't let emotion dictate your strategy. This isn't about stooping to their level, it's about reclaiming your dignity and ensuring justice, in the most brutally effective way possible. It's about taking back control of your narrative and your life. And remember, you deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect. Never settle for less. Now, even though the dust has settled on the legal side and Sarah is effectively out of our lives, the echoes of her betrayal still ripple through things, often in unexpected ways. For example, parental events at school. I'm always the sole parent there, and sometimes I see other moms glance at me with that mix of pity and curiosity. I just hold my head high. I'm there for my kids, not for anyone else's judgment. Sarah rarely attends the supervised visits, often making excuses or canceling last minute, which honestly, is probably for the best for the kids, as it avoids further disappointment for them. The bigger change has been in my own emotional landscape. There are moments of quiet reflection when I think about how blindly I loved her, how much I gave. It's a strange feeling, a mix of self-reproach for being so naive, and pride for how I navigated the fallout. I've learned a lot about boundaries. A lot. I've become fiercely protective of my emotional space and the sanctity of my home with my children. Anyone new coming into my life needs to understand that. There's zero tolerance for deceit. I've also discovered a new appreciation for genuine connections. My friends, especially Mark, were absolute rocks. They didn't judge, they just offered support, a listening ear, and practical help when I needed it most. It showed me who my real allies were. Sometimes, I wonder what Sarah's life is like now. I hear snippets from mutual acquaintances: she's working a low-paying job, living with her parents, struggling with the social fallout. I don't feel joy in her misery, not anymore. The burning rage has cooled to a dull ember of indifference. It's more a confirmation that her choices led her down this path, and I chose a different one. A path of rebuilding, of integrity, and of fiercely protecting my kids and myself. And honestly, that peace, that quiet determination, is the best revenge of all. It's not about her suffering, it's about my thriving.